Wiley. I'm the sheriff in Ascension Parish.
I'm Linda Wagestack Wiley. My dad was sheriff during the 60s also. And I'm so glad to be here and to get the full account from someone who's been through it at the time.
Yes, your father was the sheriff when we were here, August 28, 1963. And I want you to know he's a good guy, and he was hospitable, and he made things as pleasant as he could under the circumstances. In the church, we call this restorative justice.
Restorative justice.
That's where the victims and the perpetrators come together and reconcile.
Yes. So glad to meet you and see you again.
In the church, there's the concept of restorative justice, where the victims and the perpetrators reconcile. They come together and they share their experiences, and they forgive each other for whatever pain that might have caused at that time. It's a growing movement in the country, restorative justice.
In the summer of '63, how did your life change?
Well, from 1961 to the time I got to the summer of '63, when I was responding to a letter from W.W. Harlow to come to Ivanville Parish to do some work. I mean, that was a journey in between those years that had a change in my life. I was expelled from Southern University, so I knew I had to put education on hold.
Today, and I'll quote Dr. Cornel West from Harvard University, he says, justice is what love looks like out in the public. I would like to further extend that and say justice is what love looks like both inside and outside of every human being. Prefacing with that statement, as you went through the hardships of what transpired in the streets, on the job, from the naysayers, most particularly those that don't look like you or I, what was your overall mindset, your temperament, your attitude that kept you committed, focused, but most of all dedicated to the movement?
A reporter asked me that similar question the other day. He said, where is the hostility? Where is the hatred? And made me think about it, other than by the grace of God, you know, that somehow. I think when I try to put it in words, I stay focused on the prize. And I recognize that love conquers all. And it's that commitment to change the world through service that kept me going. I never focused on the perpetrators. I never focused on the difficulties of the time. And I remained patient that things were going to change because people were not going to stop serving. And that the dream to eliminate poverty, the dream to make the society just. Nelson Mandela pointed out that a nation is judged by how it treats its prisoners.
So true.
And that if you thought about the men of change, there was Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King, and Nelson Mandela all share one thing: they were all prisoners. So was Jesus. And so you recognize that somehow you have to talk about a forgiving society of those who bring about, those who disrespectfully use you, and you love your enemies. That's the greatest challenge in the world today, is to put our political views based upon our conviction of love and justice, rather than our political views being based upon self-interest, competition, and who's gonna win, who's gonna stay in the White House. As a matter of fact, I couldn't answer your question without really concentrating on 1963. Folks, we never talked about the black president of the United States being a reality. And I remember having a conversation with my sister before He died, it was right before Barack Obama was elected president. He said, "You think he's gonna win?" And I want to answer him. I said, "Yeah, he's gonna win, he's gonna win. He's gonna win the election night, he's gonna win." Yeah, he's gonna win. Justice is gonna win over, what you call that, I don't know that day had come. But the night he was elected, folks called me. Strange. I never thought I would receive a call. I mean, Barack was president, you know what I'm talking about. He says, "Well, Ronnie, had not you guys stood up in 1963, all of those guys, black and whites, stood up, and this day would have never happened." And I think that the country is changing for the good, and there's a new generation of people.
What happened in Plaquemine on the day leading up to your escape?
Oh, you're probably talking about a time which was 3 days after the speech. That was September 1st, 1963, when state troopers bombed the church, the Plymouth Rock Baptist Church, and they shot tear gas canisters in the church. And they deputized some of the local people to start a house-to-house search for the demonstrators. It was primarily looking for Jim Farmer, Jetson Davis, and I. And so the local leaders got together and managed for us to, Jim Farmer, Jefferson Davis, and I, to get out of Plaquemine in a hearse. That came down the same back road. We probably passed the jail 3 days later. This time, we were in a hearse going to New Orleans trying to escape.
How would you say it changed your life? Your escape and what all happened to you during December of 1963?
I discovered my mission. I discovered the purpose of my birth.
Mr. Moore, my name is Robin Penn Delaney, and I'm the president of the Ascension Parish branch of the NAACP. And I'd just like to say thanks to you for all you've done to bring the dream to reality. Some people may not realize, but it takes a team of people to make things happen.
Yes.
And when you have God in the plan, the mission will be accomplished. So thanks again for all you've done and what you continue to do for the cause of justice.
All I want to say, we had the same problem trying to get people to vote. They had to come up with a little test, and the older people couldn't pass it.
Right,
We had to go with them and take the test for them.
We did that.
We did all that.
Yeah.
Then what they did, they closed the school on us, locked the gate, and walked picking from the school. Wouldn't let the buses pass. Sheriff Wagerspack got that gate open, got U.S. Marshals, and deputized us to follow the bus to go to school. Hickley Wagerspack, good man.
Well, thank you, Richard Brand. I'm part of the Central Parish School System. Matter of fact, I'm a member. My thought process is this: from the early '60s, which you are very familiar with, to 2014, what did you see in the difference of young people compared to the '60s as of now?
You would say that you have more young people in jail. You would say that today we have more violence. You probably say today we have more drugs. I would say today we have more poverty. I think that you have more lack of job opportunities for young people. You have to look at young people not as victims and not as liabilities. But you have to look at, even in the most difficult situations, you have to look at the assets. So when I see young people, I don't see them as liabilities. I see them as, I see their potential for making the world better, right? I think something that may be lacking today that we didn't, is not with young people. I think it's with those of us who have and gained, not sharing enough with young people. I think the challenge is our resources to be mentors to young people. There are 2 million children in this country whose parents are incarcerated. It seems to me that 2 million mentors from the church world, 2 million mentors from the school system, and 2 million mentors from wherever we could get mentors, and each one adopt a child. Well, that's where I am. It's just what we can do and what we are not doing. It's the sin of omission that's causing the problem in the world today.
Mr. Moore, what was going on in the Donaldsonville jail cells around this time? What were y'all talking about?
Well, the night we arrived here, you have to understand, we had just marched to City Hall down in Plaquemine, and they had just dispersed the crowd with tear gas. And it was a mass of people, so we're really worried about what's happening to the folks out there while we're in jail, what's gonna happen over the next few days to come. I think that was really on our minds. And so as we would communicate from here to the outside world with our lawyers, we began to really concentrate on, there's a movement going on out there while we're sitting in this jail.
Mr. Moore, you mentioned to me earlier that there were several of the men who bailed out. Can you talk a little bit about who those men were who bailed out? And Mr. Farmer, if he had gone to Washington, was there any discussion about what his speech might have been, or what would he have said at the March on Washington after leaving this Donaldsonville jail?
All right. There were 5 of us. Well, we thought that Dr. Bertrand Tyson should not stay long in jail. So he wasn't here on the 28th. He stayed about 2 or 3 days, and we wanted Bertrand to go out and take care of the people, because there were people who were hurt. I think he was the only black doctor in the parish, and we weren't too sure what the white doctor was going to do. So we wanted Bertrand out there. And then we asked that W.W. Harlow, because he was taking his sick time to stay in jail, all the other time he could take, not to lose his job, because he was the best principal in the area. And so, Jetson Davis was there, and Jim Farmer was up there. I don't know why he liked what you call that, and that was my spot, probably over there, when we watched the march on August 28th. The decision that Jim Farmer had to deal with, why don't you go to Washington and represent CORE? And he said, no, I can't leave the people in jail and go out to Washington to speak. And then it's a big discussion in CORE as to who then would represent CORE instead of James Farmer. Because James Farmer was the orator, he was the founder of CORE. So we selected Floyd McKissick. And we often thought that if Jim Farmer had gone to Washington, I don't know what the theme would have been, because I didn't know. What I hear was that it was not in Dr. King's script to deliver the speech, I Have a Dream. It was Mahalia Jackson that told him as he was finishing the speech, tell him about the dream, Martin. So I don't know if James Farmer had been up there. Somebody would have yelled to him, maybe, freedom now. And so I do know he was the only one with the capacity of oratory that could compete with Martin. And then it was a matter of what the Spirit would reveal to them.
Okay, so can you please describe to me your contact with the CORE President James Farmer?
Oh, you mean President Barack Obama and James Farmer? Well, let me tell you something about me and President Obama. I don't know if there was any in my life. I do know that he was a community organizer, right? And therefore, you know who paid it? The Catholic Campaign for Human Development. And we got the check. Right? So there's a correlation. He was a community organizer, and James Farmer was a community organizer. right? We all could become community organizers. But I treat the president as a relative of mine in the White House. You know, like my brothers in the White House, and I can tell you, I never had a president I could call my brother. Y'all trying to stretch Bill Clinton. That ain't gonna work. And then I talk to people all the time, right? They try to get me to say, well, has he made any mistakes? So you talking about my brother? He made no mistakes. He hasn't done anything wrong. Everything he did was right. Why? Because I believe that Barack, you know, has his eyes on the prize. I think he knows it has to be done, and he's doing it. And the same old enemies that have been against change, that have been against justice, that have been against truth, those enemies did not vote for Barack, will never support Barack, but there's a new generation that put him in the White House. The new generation that re-elected him, and there's a new generation that's going to support him. Now, whether we left on the 30th, or I know it was probably not the 29th, so probably the 30th or the 31st, right? And we went back to continue the movement. I often wonder why was such a violent reaction to that march that night on the 31st, on the September 1st. I'm convinced that people were still suffering from the aftermath of the march at Washington, and then the movement was going to continue back at the local level, and so they decided they were going to stop it. So I went back to Plaquemine.
So you said something about something happened at the church. Can you tell us what happened at the church on that night?
It was simply a rally that the people were there singing songs, and we, you know, had this motivating speakers at the church that night. Nothing to provoke it except they said, you're not marching out of church tonight. They were going to stop the march in the church. It was then that the tear gas canisters were shot in the church. Matter of fact, state trooper rode his horse down the middle of the aisle of the church and began to shoot tear gas canisters into the pews. I remember seeing it. Somebody grabbed me and said, go more. It's over with, we gotta get out of here. And at that moment, actually, I only recall being led by people. That's how we ended up in the funeral home that night, and the people organized our exit.
This was back in Plaquemine?
Yes, yes. Jim Farmer describes that night in his book, Freedom Wind.
Freedom Wind?
Yeah, Freedom Wind.
I would like to encourage all of the students here to read that book, Freedom Wind by James Farmer. And I want to say thank you so much, Mr. Moore.